Welcome to the Times of Israel's The Reel Schmooze. I'm your host, Amanda Borschel-Dan, here with our movie maven, Jordan Hoffman, for all the news and movie reviews a Jew or a non-Jew can use. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. We were just, we doing a little pre-schmooze before the schmooze, and we're both just like, today is pretty awful. We record a little bit before the podcast goes out, and today we're recording especially early because of cockamamie scheduling, and so we're right now just getting off. We're still reeling from the Australia attack, and when the Australia attack happened, we were still reeling from the Providence, Rhode Island Brown University attack, and then we heard this news about Rob Reiner getting murdered. Just like a triple dose of like, what the hell? Can I go back to sleep now? Can I pull the covers up over my head? It's just been a pretty rough couple of days, or not even a rough couple of days. One day. I think it all happened in 24 hours from Brown to the Rob Reiner thing. So
yeah, and I have to say the Rob Reiner greeted me right when I woke up. I got your email. I think it was 6 something in the morning. You had just sent it actually, and I was just astonished that this could have happened. We will talk all about that in a second. But I just want to say there's one silver lining here of our different time of recording, etc. Do you know what that is?
You've had a few glasses of wine because we're doing it at night this time for you?
No, I have had several latkes, though I would have to say, because it is Hanukkah, and I've, I think, fried so far about 300 latkes, and I'm not even kidding. And they're all gone, of course.
Excellent.
But you can't complain about it being the crack of dawn for you. So that's the only silver line. That's it. That's all we got.
Yeah. We also have a particularly downbeat episode where everything we're covering today is a little bit depressing or significantly depressing. But, we're going to try to approach it with our usual good cheer.
Yes, but I have one thing I would like to talk about before we talk about everything else that is incredibly depressing.
Go.
So listeners, if you want to stop after this segment, nobody blames you. So my assistant, Yaakov, whom we discussed last week, had another really great idea. And he said that we really need to have our own kind of grading system. And you may have noticed, Jordan, that I headlined our previous episode something like 2 mehs for Jay Kelly, something like that. So, because meh is like a particular kind of, it's not terrible, but it's not good, that kind of thing. And so meh is like it's the meh. I mean, there's nothing more you need to say. It's the meh.
Yeah.
And so we were chatting, Yaakov and I, and he suggested that the 2 thumbs down, like the really bad one, should be the oi grade.
Sure. Yeah, the oi is the
the oi
negative. Yeah.
Yeah, full on negative. And then we had a little bit of a problem trying to come up with something that we both liked. And his suggestion I thought was quite good. It was not bad.
Yaakov is a very funny guy. So the full-throated endorsement, the cheers, the absolute cheering, we loved it, is actually not bad. Okay, that's good.
You see, it seems pretty Jewish and pretty right on to me.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So what is the meh? What is the
meh is between the?
Oh, it stays the meh. Is there a Hebrew word for meh?
Meh.
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
Trust me on this.
Yeah, it's mad, but you clear your throat. I get it. Okay,
exactly.
Good. I love it. I think it's terrific.
All right. Great. So we're going to go to a short break, and then the rest of the program will commence, and it will be actually very depressing, but informative and I think moving in parts as well. So a bit of a different speed for the Reel Schmooze this time.
Over 2,000 years ago, the Hanukkah flame burned against all odds, a symbol of resilience and hope that still shines brightly today. Now, Israel once again turns to light, not just to remember, but to protect and rebuild. As the country rises from 2 years of war, the Technion's brightest minds are leading the way, revitalizing the economy, strengthening national security, and shaping a future full of promise. This Hanukkah, we honor the Technion minds who bring light to the darkness, in our labs, on our front lines, and in our hearts. May the light of innovation illuminate every corner of Israel, heralding a new era of strength and renewal.
And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our movie maven, Jordan Hoffman. So Jordan, as you mentioned, beloved movie maker and actor as well. Rob Reiner was found dead in his home with his wife, Michele. His son, their son, Nick, has been arrested, and we don't know about charges at this point, but there are rumors at least stating
Yeah.
at recording time that he potentially was the one who stabbed his parents to death. Nick Reiner, of course, has been in and out of rehab very, very overtly and quite living it on the screen and as well. He had a film that discussed this, but it's a tragic day for all of Hollywood, all of
Yeah.
humankind, really, because, he, out of probably any of the directors that we're going to discuss over this series, The Reel Schmooze, I think I've actually seen maybe not all of his stuff, but
Yeah.
so much of it.
Well, there
Really?
was a stretch. There was a stretch of time when he was infallible, when he would just knock out one after another as a director in predominantly comedy, but not exclusively comedy. And it always had a magic touch. I mean, you can look at some of the great directors of all time, and we can talk a little bit about the list of when he was in his real stride, when just anything he had the magic pixie dust. He did, to be fair, he did, his more recent work is not as iconic as when he was in his plum years. But, he even this year, they did a sequel to Spinal Tap, which is not a masterpiece, but it's amusing. I mean, great for a plane or to watch at home. The second Spinal Tap has got some good jokes in it. And then another thing about him is that he was a very important producer of other people's work. He co-founded a company called Castle Rock Entertainment, and anybody who's ever watched television can picture the little logo.
Sure.
He was one of 3 or 4 guys who founded it, and Seinfeld was a Castle Rock production. That's like bedrock of entertainment of the 1990s. And Castle Rock, in addition to Rob Reiner's own work, produced a lot of, big splashy popcorn Hollywood movies, but also championed a lot of great independent films. The work of, say, a guy like John Sayles, who is a director whose movies don't make money and, is always scrounging for a buck. And for a little while, Castle Rock was like, oh, like John Sayles, you're our guy. Don't worry. And that's pretty menschy behavior on behalf of that group. So, and then, of course, as an actor, it's like if all he was an actor, Dayenu. I mean, he's the meathead, for God's sakes. He was,
Right.
Carl Reiner's son, which is a
Exactly.
big
He had
shoes.
such
Yeah.
yichus. As we say, he was Carl Reiner and Estelle Reiner. His mother was also in the business.
Yes.
So his yichus was solid. And then, as you said, he started out, I think it was his first actual role, wasn't it, as Meathead?
He had done a little bit of acting here and there before. He was not a superstar, though. That was his first big role, was to play Mike Stivic, the son-in-law of Archie Bunker in the most important American sitcom of the 1970s, that and MASH. You could argue which one, MASH or All in the Family, but those are the two biggies. And was a comic foil against Archie Bunker. He was, he was great because he was always right in the argument, but he could also be a pain in the ass sometimes. And he and Archie would get into it, and he had that great voice. And he was sort of the representative of a younger generation at the time, the 70s, kind of like dealing with the older generation who was stuck in their ways, a little bit sexist, racist, all those things. There's no shortage of great, I say the word great in quotes, anti-Semitic moments on All in the Family, which were then challenged by the meathead. And
Wasn't it produced by a Jew?
oh yeah, Norman
Yeah.
Lear, yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
exactly. Yeah.
When I say anti-Semitic moments, I meant the character would say something stupid, and then
Oh,
Meathead
Archie,
would,
right?
Archie
Yeah.
would say something stupid, and
Mhm.
Meathead would correct him, or Edith,
Right.
the wife, would correct him. Probably the most funny one that I can think of is, for some cockamamie reason, Sammy Davis Jr. ends up in the living room of the Bunker household. Why, God only knows. And so Sammy Davis Jr. and Archie Bunker are having a schmooze, and Archie Bunker says, "So Sam," I won't get the words exactly right, I'm paraphrasing. He goes, "So Sam, I understand you being colored and all, you had no choice in that. But what made you decide to go and turn Jew?" This is a legendary
Right.
line.
Yeah.
And of course it gets a big laugh, and then I forget what Sammy Davis Jr. says back, and then he kisses him on the cheek, and it's a very funny
Nice.
moment. And that's the meat. And then as an actor, he acted periodically once he became a big shot director. Um, he would still show up and saying he's in the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a relatively recent film. Martin Scorsese. He's fantastic in that. He plays the maniac father of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, the central character. He's in Woody Allen's Bullets Over Broadway. He's very, very funny in that. He plays kind of a irresistible to women, which is, he's not exactly an underwear model. He looks like Rob Reiner, but still women are attracted to him, which is a great thing. And it's just very, very sad. And then the other thing, of course, is he was very much a righteous man. He supported Israel despite being a liberal. Can you imagine that? A liberal Zionist that does exist. Some on the internet refused to accept that could be. He believed in free speech. He spoke his mind. He loved America. He challenged the president. And I don't know if you saw the current president of the United States, Queens native Donald John Trump, had a statement about Rob Reiner. Did you see the statement that?
I did not actually, no.
Well, I know we have some listeners, Amanda, who stand by Mr. Trump, and I don't want to get in their face or anything. And I know Mr. Trump did change the location of the embassy in Israel, and that's very popular amongst the TOI listeners.
I think there are a few other things that he's known for here. More recently, getting the 20 living hostages freed. Throwing that out there.
He did that too. Nevertheless, Donald Trump decided to go on social media and say, I'll read it very quickly. "A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michele, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as, all caps, Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy, all caps, by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michele rest in peace." This is truly one of the most bizarre statements the president has made, and completely unacceptable as far as the guy just got murdered, probably by his son. He has other siblings. God knows what they're feeling right now. And to learn that the president is basically laughing at this because this guy criticized Trump is, in my opinion, in the opinion of me only, kind of sickening. So that's what I'm getting.
On the other hand, Jordan, he was known for his comedic timing, so it's possible that Rob Reiner would have found that, well, rather amusing.
It's possible this is the greatest gift they could give to their family. I don't know. I think it's pretty gross of the president, and maybe some others will just sort of ignore it. But I don't know. It is a president, for God's sakes. Worry about other stuff. Don't worry about a Hollywood director who got murdered in his bed, for God's sake. So anyway,
so obviously, U.S. President Donald Trump is not the only man of note who has some kind of I don't know, shall we say it, unusual reputation. So too, the director of your first film that we're going to cover. How does that segue? That was probably the worst I've ever done.
No, that's fine with me. It's fine with me. Yes,
Okay.
the director of the first film was a fellow by the name of Roman Polanski, a very controversial figure who is also talented. Listen, Trump is talented too. The Apprentice was a funny show. I admit that Trump can sometimes land a joke. So Polanski, I can give a bit for people who are kind of scratching their heads and going, "Oh, I've heard about that guy." I can give the lightning round introduction. The man has lived a life that sounds like fiction when you hear about this film director, Roman Polanski. He's actually born in France, but he's Polish, and then he was living in Krakow from like the age of 2 or 3, and then the Second World War breaks out, and his mother is killed at Auschwitz. His father was he witnessed his father being taken to the trains to the camps. His father survived the camps, but he was actually witnessed it. And in a film Polanski made, The Pianist, there's a moment where the son sees the father and is about to approach him, and the father pushes him away. That actually came from his life. During the war, Polanski survived. He hid with a righteous Catholic family, and was apparently, and this is straight out of the movies, there were some German soldiers that saw him in the woods and shot at his feet and said, "Dance, dance," which seems fake. That seems like something that happens only in the movies. It apparently actually happened to him. He managed to survive the war. After the war, he attended film school in Poland. He made some fantastic films in Polish, part of a new wave of post-war filmmakers from Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, and then went to London, made some films in Britain, and then came to Hollywood and was a tremendous Hollywood success. He was sort of at the epicenter of the counterculture Hollywood scene of the late 1960s. His wife at the time was an actress by the name of Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate was pregnant with his child at the time of the famous Charles Manson murders, and she was killed in Polanski's home, and he was not there. This is something that I find very interesting about his biography that a lot of people leave out, is that for several months after the murders, Polanski was the number one suspect. And a lot of people were just convinced that he was the one who did it, partially because he had previously made a film called Rosemary's Baby, which is a marvelous, although macabre and sinister movie that involves all kinds of crazy things about Satanism and whatnot, and babies and all that. And then just because they just thought he was the guy, because he wasn't home. Why wasn't he home? And he's this weird, kind of diminutive Polish Jew, and he's got to be the one who did it. And then later it was discovered that it wasn't him. But the fact that for many months he was the number one suspect actually makes its way into some of the paranoia of his later films, specifically Chinatown, which is, if you watch Chinatown, which is a masterpiece of the 1970s, and watch it and think to yourself, oh, this is a movie made by a guy whose wife was killed in a very public and weird and epic, epoch-changing murder story, and he was, for a little time, considered suspect number one. It really changes how you watch that film. Anyhow, into the 1970s, he was kind of at the top of Hollywood, and he committed a crime. He drugged and raped a 13-year-old girl during a photo shoot at Jack Nicholson's house. He wasn't there at the time, and was arrested. He pled guilty. He then caught wind that the judge was going to make sort of a what is it called when you make a statement on somebody, when you make a I don't know, when he was going to give him a very harsh sentence. And so Polanski fled, and he left the U.S., went to Europe, and he's never returned. And you would think at that point he would flee to Europe and then go, become work in a post office or something and just like leave the public eye. But he continued to make films. Many of them are quite good, but it's a little bit weird that for a very long time, a lot of high-level Hollywood people continued to work with him. Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, a lot of other people that I like, made very good movies with Polanski. I mean, Harrison Ford is in a movie called Frantic, directed by Polanski in the 80s. I love that film. It's great. But it's all very gross. I mean, the guy raped a 13-year-old. It's pretty unforgivable. Nevertheless, and then of course he made The Pianist, which is one of the better Holocaust films ever made. It won him an Oscar. He did not accept it because he can't come to America. Anyway, when the Me Too movement happened in 2017, people started saying, oh, gee, maybe we should not be celebrating this guy as much as we are. He was dismissed from the Academy. He sued the Academy, blah, blah, blah. And his movies are not as welcomed in the U.S. as they are in Europe. Of course, by now he's quite old. He doesn't work as much as he did. But in 2019, he made a film called, in French, it's called J'accuse. And in English, it's called An Officer and a Spy, and it is about the Dreyfus Affair. It showed in 2019 at the Venice Film Festival, where it did win an award. I don't think it was the top award. And then the César Awards, which is France's equivalent of the Oscars, it won him the best adapted screenplay. He adapted the story from a book by Robert Robert, the guy who also did Conclave. I forget his name, but that's the author. He's a very celebrated author. He adapted the book into the screenplay, and he won the Best Director award, causing great consternation in France at the time. Anyway, the movie, like I said, it completed in 2019, but it only came out in the U.S. this year, 2025. Listen, with all that backstory, it's about the Dreyfus Affair. It's something of interest to us. And it's, in my opinion, I think it's actually a pretty good movie. We'll see if Amanda agrees, but it is troubling. I mean, and then the other last troubling thing, and then I'll stop with the backstory, is when he was promoting the film, he compared himself to Dreyfus, which is just like, shut up, buddy. I mean, get over yourself. You raped a 13-year-old girl. That's my opinion, by the way. Very opinionated today, Amanda. He's a talented guy, but don't compare yourself to Dreyfus. You are not Dreyfus. I mean, you're in hiding. You can't go to America. Boo-hoo. You live in France. Big deal. You have good baguettes whenever you want it. But he feels that the world is up against him. Now, granted, the first part of his life was crazy. He survived the Holocaust. They had Nazis shooting his speed. His mother was killed at Auschwitz. His wife was murdered by these weirdo religious freaks, the Mansons. The guy's life is insane. That's my diatribe about Roman Polanski. What did you think of the film, Amanda?
Okay, so you actually warned me a little bit that it would be slow and I might have trouble. I have to tell you, my husband and I, we watched it. We did not fall asleep at all. We watched it in one go. It's over 2 hours long, I believe. So that's kind of rare for us, unfortunately. And we were gripped by it. Of course, we are Jewish history nerds, and we wanted to see how the story would be spelled out. And though, of course, it is about the Dreyfus Affair, which, I mean, I'm sure our listeners know quite well, but essentially, Alfred Dreyfus was accused of being a traitor. And he was stripped of his ranks, and he was sent to live in isolation, essentially, on a really deserted island.
Devil's Island, it's called.
Devil's Island.
Yeah.
Right. Terrible punishment. Of course, a huge shame on his family. And his family was quite well off. He did not need to be in the army to make a living. He did it because he was a patriot and he loved his country, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the actual focus of the movie is not on Dreyfus, rather on Picard, I think his name is.
Not Captain Picard from Star Trek.
Right.
Picard
so made me think of that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Picard, and he is the guy who basically got the try. He was an investigator, and he I think you're touching on something very important, Amanda, is that the movie's point of view is from a very interesting person. This guy Picard was an anti-Semite himself. I mean, he was not a frothing anti-Semite, but he was like, ugh, the Jews, what if they stink. I'm not a fan.
Well, there's actually a really great scene, quite very much in the beginning of the film, where Dreyfus is saying to Picard, "Why did you grade me so harshly? All the other teachers think that I'm, God's grace. Here, give me a better grade." And then Dreyfus says, "Is it because I'm a Jew?" And Picard says, "I have no love for the Jews, but I would not allow that prejudice to inform my my marking."
Right. That's exactly right. Although he is prejudiced against Jews, and he admitted it, he also has sort of compartmentalized. He's very serious about his work, and I take him at his word that he actually didn't grade him harshly because he was Jewish. And he, even though he didn't care for the Jews, he was the first one to really think, gee, I have a hunch that Dreyfus is innocent. And he really ruined his own life to prove it. I mean, he put himself through years of torment. And one of the great scenes, I mean, this is basically a legal thriller. So imagine the hero of a legal thriller, and he just says, oh, life would be so much easier if Dreyfus was guilty, but I know he's not. And he can't allow injustice to happen. And that's why I find this movie to be quite good, because that's a very unique thing to see. I've never really seen a character like this before.
And I think it's good that Polanski painted him not as a saint. This guy is an adulterer. He's having a long-standing affair with a married woman. They get found out. This is all historical, so I feel like we're not spoiling anything.
Played by Polanski's wife, by the way.
Really?
The woman he's stooping around with is played by Polanski's daughter.
Oh, she was gorgeous.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
what can I say?
Yeah, okay. In any case, and I thought that was actually important because you don't want to have this like Christ-like character opposite Dreyfus, right? This guy, he's not a saint. He's messing up here. He also has his own pride issues, things of that nature, but he really could not abide the injustice of it all. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It is that aspect of it, I think, is really fascinating, getting inside of Picard's head. And then the other thing that I find to be there's an entertainment value here, is that it's kind of like CSI Paris of the previous century. I mean, there's a lot of like, how do they figure out clues? And, they don't have digital tracking. They don't have cell phones. They take the mail and put it over Steam to open up the letters. And, very early use of photography and figuring, using early photography to determine when somebody's entering and exiting a building. I mean, that's just like good sort of like caper film material. And I find that to be very engrossing and quite entertaining, even though the baseline of this film is injustice, and anti-Semitism. And I think even if Picard wasn't, didn't care that much about that aspect of it, I think audiences are supposed to be enraged about how this guy can't win. It was just, he was determined, because he's Jewish, we'll just frame him. There's a wonderful...
Exactly. And I thought that was really wonderfully done as well. There was a scene in the courtroom where essentially this, expert graphologist, is dissecting the differences between Dreyfus's handwriting and the sample that they have. And essentially, as Dreyfus puts it, something like this: the letters that are the same is because I'm guilty, and those that are different are also because I'm guilty.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
It's wonderful because they accuse
Yeah.
what they say. It's one of these like mind games. At first, they're like, oh, someone who's not an expert looks at these two signatures and goes, oh, yeah, those are close. It's clearly the same guy. And then the expert says, no, they're not. There's differences between the two of them. But that's proof that he did it because he was an auto forger. In other words, he intentionally made it look like not my signature. Now, how can you prove against that? You can't. That's like a tree falling in a forest with nobody there. This is clearly your signature. Why do you say that? Because it doesn't look like your signature. I mean, that's almost like a Jewish joke. I mean, it's hilarious.
I mean, it is a Jewish joke because it's an anti-Semitic frame, so it's really the joke's on the Jews.
Yeah.
So, tachlis, in short, because we have another film we need to discuss. So Jordan, I would give it, I mean, knowing the whole backstory and having daughters and really hating the person who produced it, but I would give it a not bad.
Yeah, I agree. It's a not bad. Now, if there's someone listening who's like, screw it, I don't care how good this movie is, I'm not watching anything by Roman Polanski, I understand. That's fantastic. I get it. You have to sort of figure out your own way through life. I mean, maybe you never listen to Wagner again, even though he wrote great operas, he was an anti-Semite, so screw him. But if you're someone who can differentiate or compartmentalize or whatever, it's a really good movie. It's also difficult to find in the US, but not that difficult. You just have to Google it and go to YouTube, and there's a link in Russian, but it has English subtitles. It's fine. And it's worth your time if you're a history buff. I mean, there have been other films about the Dreyfus Affair before, but not as good as this. It's really, I think, of interest to our listeners, despite all the baggage it comes with.
Okay, so let's go to a short break.
3 million Israelis are dealing with trauma since October 7th. To help Israelis heal, Hadassah is there, with the largest rehabilitation center in Jerusalem, world-renowned medical centers, and youth villages. It's said, saving a life saves the world. Imagine helping millions. This is Hadassah, a life-changing force in Israel and the world.
And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our movie maven, Jordan Hoffman. Now, if people had trouble swallowing the previous film that we spoke about because of who made it, this film that we're going to discuss right now, The Voice of Hind Rajab, is not for everyone that is going to be in our listening audience.
Sure.
Basically, because it is a film, it's almost a propaganda film, but it's incredibly well done. It's created by a Tunisian director. You can tell us her name in a second. And the whole setup is there's a young girl who's trapped in a car in Gaza, surrounded by her family who are all dead, and she is trapped in this car, and she is begging the Palestinian Red Crescent, which is like the Red Cross, but for Palestinians, who are actually based in Ramallah. All the calls were forwarded to Ramallah, and she's begging them to send an ambulance to her in northern Gaza to pick her up. And the entire film is so cleverly made because it's taking her actual voice track and superimposing it on with these amazing Palestinian and Jordanian actors. One of the women, actually, the woman who plays the therapist, Nasreen, I think her name is. She's Clara Khouri, and she's a Israeli. She's an Arab Israeli. She was born in Haifa. She's quite well known here in Israel, especially for her work on this humorous series, a comic series about being Arab in Israel that aired on Israeli television decades ago.
What?
Can't imagine that happening right now. It's called Arab Work. It's
yes, I know about Arab Labor. Yes, I know about that.
Arab
And
Labor.
they're right.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've been meaning to. I didn't even realize
Fantastic.
that's who that was. Yeah.
Yes. So it's really, really well done because as the film unfolds, it's about an hour and a half or so. It's not a documentary, but it has elements of documentary. It's fantastically woven together, the real and the reenacted, and any human with a heart and any kind of empathy in this world will be drawn into the story. You know the ending already,
Yeah.
and you are on the edge of your seat just praying for some kind of miracle to help this girl. And you almost can believe that it's going to happen throughout this drama. So it's incredibly difficult to watch. I think, set aside the fact that I'm a Jewish Israeli, it's difficult to watch because I'm a person.
Yeah.
I'm a mother.
Yeah.
I thought it was incredibly well done.
Did you watch it all in one shot, or did you break it up?
Yeah.
And did your husband watch it as well?
No. We this is the week of Hanukkah. We have guests every single night.
Yeah.
I sat down to watch it at like 11, and I said, "So are you going to join me?" He said, "Are you out of your mind?"
Well, listen, I have a lot to say about this. First of all, the movie is good. I mean, just straight up, it just as a piece of art, it's kind of like a filmed play. It's kind of like you say, half documentary. It's almost like in real time, and you are at the edge of your seat, even though you know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, this story, it was a famous story if you follow the news in Gaza. I mean, but yet you are gripped because the performances are good, the camera work is good, and it's not really about Hind Rajab. It's about the people on the other end of the phone. I mean, that's where we are the whole time. The entire film is set in the offices of the Red Crescent in Ramallah, and they're on the phone dealing with red tape. That's who the enemy is, really. The principal enemy of this film is they have to get an ambulance from from X to Y, and it's really only 8 minutes away, but it takes them hours to get there, and there's still problems. Now,
I mean, the red tape is definitely the suspense and the frustration of it.
Yeah.
I mean, as an Israeli, of course, it pains me that there is no mention that Hamas is part of this impossible mission.
Yes.
Absolutely no mention of that, and that the Israeli army are the bad guys in the story.
Well, there's an entire meta-narrative to why this movie even exists. This movie is the tip of the spear of several films coming out right now that are about the Gaza war and that are sympathetic to Gazan civilians. And listen, on October 8th, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine because we're in the movie reviewing biz, and I even said, "Oh my God, there'll be so many movies about this that are just going to be impossible to watch." And knowing that the response to October 7th was going to be big, that there would be casualties, and this is horrible. I mean, this is awful. Now, this is the type of movie So when I was saying that, I was like, I mean, I might as well say what's on my mind, Amanda, right? I mean, when Hamas invaded Israel, they knew this was coming. They knew the response would be brutal, and they knew that that there would be dead civilians. And I believe, in my opinion, again, that was all part of Hamas's plan to let their own civilians die and make Israel look bad, and it followed the narrative, and that's why there's protests everywhere.
Now,
So,
this movie is so good for several different reasons.
Mhm.
One, because obviously the filmmaker is extremely talented,
Mhm.
no question. But it's also, did you see the list of the executive producers? We're talking about like Brad Pitt. You
Yeah,
have
he's one
Joaquin Phoenix, Jonathan Glazer. Yeah.
most of them signed up kind of after the fact when the film was already finished, and it was like, look, this thing is going to need some help to be seen internationally. And I think they watched it and said, look, this is dicey. Somebody like, Brad Pitt's company, for example. I don't know specifically, but I'll just use that as a potential example. They didn't want to finance it from the beginning, but when it was finished, they said, look, this is something that everybody can say no 6-year-old girl deserves to be tormented for hours, trapped in a car with their dead relatives, and then ultimately killed. So we can put my name on this to help it get seen internationally. But again, going back to my earlier point, I mean, you knew on the next day, it's like there are going to be so many movies about this because this is what Hamas wants. Now, you used the term at the beginning of this conversation that this film is a propaganda film, and I don't disagree with that, but I do take it in good faith that this is a story that the director wanted to tell. She was moved by the audio of this young girl, and anybody who hears that audio is going to be moved, and wanted to tell a very precise window of time of what it was like during those, few hours when she was trapped. And if you take it as an exercise like that, it doesn't get into Hamas. It doesn't get into too much about the quote unquote Israeli occupation, although there are some stray lines of dialogue where some people who are very frustrated basically say, God damn the Israelis, they won't let us do this. But I actually take it in good faith that that is probably what those people did say at the time, because they're professionals trying to save a little girl. And if this is supposed to be like a record, a docudrama, then that is what it is. I don't necessarily think that it's the movie saying, I approve of this message that, who knows? I mean, it's difficult to say. But I think that this film can be used as a propaganda tool. But I still think that it is yeah, it's very troubling. It's a very troubling thing. And the movie is very good. It's a little heavy. I mean, it's the type of movie that I would never want to watch. I was hoping to avoid it before I came to you and I said, Amanda, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of Gaza movies coming out. And the big one, the one that's getting a lot of attention, it did win an award at festivals. It's called The Voice of Hind Rajab. We should really do it. And it really felt like eating my vegetables or doing my homework. But I would say that I didn't want to watch it even if it wasn't about this particular conflict. I wouldn't want to watch
Oh,
this
for sure.
if it was about Ukraine, if it was about, right now they're shooting each other in Cambodia and Thailand, and there are civilians getting killed in Cambodia and Thailand. I wouldn't want to watch this if it was about a Thai 6-year-old girl stuck in a car. I wouldn't want to watch it if it was fiction, because it's very depressing, and I was a mess watching this film. But the fact that it's about this
I mean,
war,
me personally,
yeah,
I tend not to watch anything that is Holocaust related. I deal with it way too much at work, and I think I'm perhaps unique on the Times of Israel staff that I have not watched the Hamas propaganda,
no,
rape, murder
no,
videos,
no, I would never do
and
that. No.
and I don't, and I try to see, a brighter side of humanity, etc. But I think that this film is very universalist, but I
Mhm.
do disagree with you that it doesn't have the anti-Israel propaganda laced through it, because there are many scenes that perhaps you heard it differently
Okay,
because you're, Jordan Hoffman, New York Jew,
that's right.
and I heard it as an Israeli, and there are so many scenes where Israel is just completely villainized, and it's potentially accurate, but villainized in a very deliberate way.
Sure.
Whereas Hamas has nothing
They
there,
never
and there's
mentioned it.
nothing. The only, frustration for the Palestinian Authority is when they're trying to get a combina, use some protection, and it's not working out. That is completely unlikely that that is factual in this kind of situation. And then, of course, you have to take into consideration that the reason why there is all this red tape is that the Palestinian Red Crescent is unwilling to speak directly with the Israeli bodies that could have given permission for this route. And that is far-fetched, I would say, in many ways, because there is a lot of security cooperation between official bodies, between Palestinians and Israelis, even during the war. The proper authorities are still speaking with each other. So I find this suspect a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because, I mean, it is, I definitely did clock the lack of why are we in this mess in the first place? Well, talk to Hamas, that's kind of who started this particular chapter. And that's, the film, could they have figured out a way to?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't find that valid.
The only way they could have included that would have been like at the beginning, like they have at the beginning they have like text on the screen, and if it could have said on October 7th, Hamas raided Israel and killed X amount of people and took hostages, and as a result, but listen, I don't have to tell you that that side of the story is something that a lot of people want to overlook.
For sure, that would not play to the audience in any kind of way.
But be that as it may, this poor little girl did get killed, and the voice of the audio is devastating to hear. And this movie is a record of that. And there are some critics who are very who are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, actually feel that it's disrespectful to use her voice in the film, even though her mother, who was not in the car, her mother has signed off on it, and also the filmmaker has rejected any. If the film becomes profitable, she's donating all the money to the Palestinian Red Crescent and donating it to the mother herself, and which is, I suppose, noble and not that the movie.
I have to say, what made me uneasy in the film, I think it was brilliant in terms of capturing the audience and telling the story. What the section that I least latched onto and kind of thought, this is where we turn extremely propaganda, was where they had the mother being interviewed in Gaza
at the very end,
and the mother going to, the body. It just, something about this felt extremely staged.
There was a tag at the end of the film. I mean, where at the end, basically it stops being a documentary narrative hybrid and just kind of goes into straight, you see the actual people who you see in the film, which is a common thing for this kind of movie. And then the last few minutes is just news footage, and it kind of shatters I agree. It shatters the artistic nature of the film, which previously could have been a play. Although one thing I did find quite remarkable, and I don't know if you caught it because I didn't catch it at first, there was a scene toward the end when they're on the phones, and most of the movie is just people on the phones freaking out and crying and whatnot. And there's at this point, the people in the Red Crescent are using their cell phones to record video to put on social media, they say, because this will help, because they want to get the world's attention. And what they did was, when you see the cell phone in front of the camera move, on the phone, you see the real life person. And then when the camera moves, you see the actor playing them, and they go, oh, geez, they got the shirt right. He was wearing a red shirt in real life, and he's wearing a red shirt in the movie. And
I thought they're actually quite close.
They looked
in every single case.
Yeah,
not just what they're wearing. Yeah, brilliantly close.
The performers really did look like the people in real life. And apart from that being just like a little gimmick, I found that to be very moving, to be reminded. It's like, yes, these are real people who spent a night furiously trying to cut through red tape, forgetting whoever caused the red tape, but whatever it was, there were people who tried to save a little girl and failed. And it's devastating to see the real people. And like I say, this movie would be effective if it was about Ukraine or any other place, or if it was fiction, it would probably still work, because you could say to yourself, these things really happen. And, the audience that we're talking to today at Times of Israel is very up on the news and reads and knows a lot about the context. And I think the things that you mentioned of like, oh, they left this out and that's not really how it works. That does color the film, but at the end of the day, it's still a 90-minute film about an atrocity, and I think it's very effective. And, war sucks. This whole thing sucks. This has been a terrible weekend. Australia, Brown University, Rob Reiner, the ongoing war. It's all, it's supposed to be Hanukkah. We're supposed to be having a good time, and it's, and we forced ourselves to watch this movie. Do we recommend this movie to people? I don't know. It's
See,
like,
I was thinking about that too. And I think like this, okay? I feel like we watched it. You heard what we had to say about it.
Yeah.
If you still want to watch it yourself, that's your own punishment.
Yeah.
But I don't think people necessarily need to watch it if they don't. I just don't. I would not recommend it.
Yeah.
Actually.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. And like I said, even if it wasn't about this topic, because it's just
Exactly.
it's harrowing. It's difficult. It's difficult to watch. I will say this though, and I will say, if the movie does get a nomination for an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, which is possible, and if somebody reads that, they should know that this is not a junk movie. It's not just,
Right.
They shouldn't say, oh, that's typical. They give it to the movie because it hates Israel. Whether or not the movie hates Israel, put that aside for a minute. It's also quite good.
Yeah.
So know that there is some quality to it. I mean, sometimes these movies get awards and you're like, oh, gee, it's because of the politics of the film. And that does happen. But this is not the case. I don't think it's going to win the Oscar for Best Foreign Language. There's some other ones this year that are much more high profile. There happens to be an Iranian film, which is quite good, which we should talk about maybe on this podcast, because Iran is, I know, of interest, because the director is someone who's always in and out of jail in Iran. So he's an interesting fella.
Okay. So
By the way, yeah, this director, by the way, her previous movie was something called Four Daughters, or it might have been Four Sisters. I forget, but I think it's Four Daughters. And it is about Islamic State. And it is not Daesh or ISIS, or however you want to call it, ISIL. Not pro, by the way, anti-Islamic State. So this woman is not exactly a radical anti-Zionist or mouth breather. She's some.
I mean, that there's no conflict there. She could be anti-ISIS and also a radical anti-Zionist. I mean, honestly, Jordan.
One would like to hope. One would like to hope not. But anyhow, her other films are of interest as well. And I do think that she made this by and large in good faith. Whether or not it's a propaganda film or not is
I say yes, and you say maybe not.
I say, you know what? I've seen a lot more of these than you have perhaps, and I've seen a lot of these films at international festivals that are just much more blunt in their propaganda. This one is more nuanced and more artful. So that's why it kind of, I think, is rising to the top a little bit. But, it's still, like you say, we saw it. If the audience we're talking to, now they know that it does have a touch of quality to it. So they shouldn't be too flabbergasted if it starts winning or at least being nominated for awards. But it's also very upsetting. And that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, Jordan.
Yes.
We need something like a palate cleanser for next week, because this was just too hard this week with, the Dreyfus movie, but the backstory of the director.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the voice of Hind Rajab is just, it tears you apart, obviously. So what are we going to do?
Well, what I was hoping is, next week we did already plan to talk about a Polish documentary, which is making which is getting a lot of attention. Which is also going to be a little bit of
honestly.
You want to nix it? You want to pick it a week?
Yeah, okay. something light. Let's not darkness.
We're gonna do the Polish documentary a week after that. Well, you know what? I think it might be a good idea to honor our friend, the late Rob Reiner.
Okay. So but we have to find a film that I haven't seen, because I've actually seen quite a few of his films.
I'm gonna run down the list. I have it right here. I have the list of movies that Rob Reiner has directed. And in order, the first one is called This Is Spinal Tap, which is a masterpiece.
I've seen that. Yeah. Amazing. Yes.
It's very, very funny and revolutionized comedy. It wasn't the first mock documentary ever made, but it was the most popular, the really wonderful at the time. 1985, he made a movie with John Cusack called The Sure Thing, a teen romance. It's very, very good.
Yeah. You know what? Stop. Let's do it. If we
You've
could
never
find
seen
the
it?
link. I've never seen it. Let's do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's what we're going to do. It's
That's what
lesser
we're gonna
known.
do.
But can I just,
It
while
may-
we're here, can I
yeah.
tell the others, Stand By Me was his third film.
No, you can't tell anything else. We'll talk about him again next week.
All right,
Can't
done.
say anything because somebody's breaking into my room as well.
Oh, the dog is
So
right.
I don't know who it
So
is.
where do you
It's not the dog. Somebody with hands has
Oh, okay.
opened the door. I don't
All
know
right.
why. They need to close it right
They
now.
need to close the door. They're going to get in trouble. Oh, they're closing up.
There you go.
Now, Amanda, we're going to talk about the Rob Reiner's second film, The Sure Thing, which I haven't seen in years, so I'm excited about that. It's got John Cusack and I think Ione Skye. And is that the only movie we'll watch for next week? Or
I don't know. Maybe we'll throw something else in, maybe even a documentary, but
But
you know what?
not the upsetting Polish one about
yeah,
war and
let's,
stuff.
let's not. Let's
Okay.
just not.
It is the holidays.
Uh,
It is the holidays.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, it'll come out and it'll be really appropriate for a movie in Chinese food next week. So
It sounds really good.
yeah,
Now,
something like that.
before I hang up, can we just say all the obnoxious and over-the-top things I said, can you edit those all out from this week? Because
What are we gonna have left? I mean,
all right, next week I'll also be, it was a rough weekend. And also I had to shovel snow this weekend. I had to shovel snow in the American Northeast. It was rough. So I came in a little raw. If I said something too radical, I take it back. But also that's what you get when you listen to the Daily Schmooze. It's two old friends schmoozing.
the Reel Schmooze.
Oh, did I say the Daily Schmooze? Did I call this the Daily Schmooze? Oh my God.
Maybe one day we'll reach the Daily Schmooze. It's a week. I don't have time to watch a movie every day.
The Daily News and the Reel Schmooze. That's what it is. Falling apart. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you're honestly better at the crack of dawn. So we'll just leave it at that time.
Yes, the next one will be in the morning when I'm sharp.
Exactly.
All right, happy
All right,
Hanukkah
Jordan.
to everybody.
Yeah,
By the time this airs,
Okay.
by the time
I'll have fried 500 latkes by the time this airs.
I crave a lot. Do you do a little sour cream or a little applesauce or neither? Just nothing.
So applesauce is not a thing here, but we actually put it with cottage cheese, and the Israeli cottage cheese is fantastic. Nothing like North American cottage cheese, but don't get me started on that. Okay, it's a whole Torah.
Okay.
In any case, Jordan,
Yes.
love you. Thank you so much. Happy Hanukkah. Listeners, thank you so much for listening to us. Please subscribe because, as I mentioned last week, I will soon not put it to the Daily Briefing channel. Please subscribe. We love you all of our loyal listeners, and come laugh with us next week when we talk about lighter things. Okay, thanks so much for listening to the Times Visuals, The Reel Schmooze. This was produced by the Podwaves and Ari Schlacht. Catch us next week. Thanks so much. Until next week, shalom.